Supernatural Season 12, Episode 4, American Nightmare. This is a pretty good episode. I had a really weird deal with this one because I watched like half of it last week, and then I went to like an anime convention over the weekend, so I missed like a bunch of shows. And before I started doing my reviews on the couple of things I watched, I was like, I don't think I actually finished like the last 20 minutes. So I actually had to watch like just the end of the episode to see how it all got resolved. But I enjoyed this one because we got to see, they kind of did, some old school stuff where they did the psychic thing, and I thought that was pretty cool. It wasn't as impactful as I was thinking, but at the same time, that was like an old storyline, which wouldn't even make sense with the girl that was so young. But they kind of brought back the psychic thing and how, apparently, whether you're infected by a demon or not, if you're a psychic, you just always end up in a screwed storyline. If it's supernatural, like you're either like pseudo spawn of a demon, or your parents are just insane, or one of them at least is 100% insane, and you accidentally kill people, and then they try to kill you at the end. So psychics just get it rough in this series. Like it just doesn't seem to matter. But I kind of enjoyed that side of it because it kind of helped Sam a little bit kind of go through a really old process in his life where he was able to utilize that, because he felt before, from the older seasons, he'd felt trying to help other people before, and they kind of show that recap where he tried to help the one guy and he like killed himself. And that happened, I want to say that happened like twice, 2 or 3 times during like the second season when he was trying to help people and they had to find all the other psychics. They either got killed or they were killing themselves because it just was constantly a disaster. So I kind of like that they brought that back. Dean, I thought, had a great story in this episode because he was just flipping out in the beginning of it because his mom took off, and he's, they kind of, some parts were funny, but most of it was serious. Like him on the phone, I thought was hilarious. But going through it, it's like he's freaking out. He's like, no, I don't think this happened. Like it's totally this Beth woman, and he was gonna go and kill her and stuff. And then he finds out the truth, and he's like, oh, so you hated this job and you never wanted it. And he's like, maybe I shouldn't just shoot her straight in the face, because he was just so dead set, like, this is not it. Like, you're totally wrong, Sam. I know what I'm talking about. I'm 100% correct. And I kind of like that part of it because it was him in this really oddly conflicting moment where it's both of them. That's the whole series, is they just always push off, they deflect every emotion ever. So it was kind of him going through that again, but in this regard, I think it was a little bit different because it was so focused on, it wasn't just focused on family as far as Sam. It was focused on family that had already been gone for such a long time, and it's just like a whole bunch of messy emotions thrown into one crazy situation. And then, Mary, of course, leaving makes it even weirder for him. So I like how they played around with how he dealt with those emotions, or didn't really deal with them until the end of the episode. And he kind of came around. It's like, he actually admitted Sam was right, which I thought was interesting. It's like, you're 100% correct. She's in a crazy situation. She needed her space, and I get that now. And then, of course, he ends up getting the message from his mom that her phone wasn't charged, so that, that's why she didn't respond instantly and stuff like that. And of course that she will always be mom to them, which, like I said, that was just a good moment. And it was funny, when he was first texting it, like, is mom weird? Should I call you Mary? Stuff like that. So I really enjoyed his storyline and, the way they went through it, where he's freaking out and stuff. They find out that Cass is with Crowley in this episode, and it's like, yeah, so they're working together. They found Rowena, and Lucifer's gone. Temporarily, at least. So there's a lot, some of the extra stuff from the last episode kind of thrown their way in this episode. And it's like, yeah, that's pretty nuts, but I guess it's somewhat solved at this point. So now they're kind of dealing with the minute letters. And, I really like the case for this one. So like I said, the psychic thing, it was very interesting just the way it started. It's like, okay, how is this playing out? It's not a demon. It's not a ghost. They were going through all these different situations. Like, it doesn't seem to really follow anything that we know. So it was hard for them to figure it out at first. And they go through and they get more and more answers. We find out that the daughter's actually alive, which admittedly surprised me. I just figured that it was probably the mother, or, something like that. She was just nuts. And the whole family, it was kind of clear as like they were religious in a really odd way. Because it wasn't like they were just religious. It was like they were like pseudo Amish. Like when they make the joke about it where Dean's like, oh, I'm surprised. I thought you'd be like, suspenders and all that stuff. And it was kind of weird because that they kind of went like half Amish a little bit, where it's like, yeah, we don't use any sort of technology. So it was pretty interesting. And because when they first mentioned it, I was like, oh, so they're Amish. And then, when they get to the house, it's like they cut down the telephone pole, and they're like, yeah, we've only done this for like 5 years. And I'm like, both their kids are over 5 years old, so this was like some random switch out of nowhere. Something really big happened. So I was very curious how it was all going to play out. And I like the way that it did. And it turns out that, the mother's the craziest out of all of them. And, they have the daughter locked up, and they believe that she's the devil because basically like a almost car crash, because she didn't even say. She was like, the daughter wanted a cell phone, and then she was yelling, and then she was like, I felt the devil at my hands. And I was like, oh, so they had a car crash. But she was like, I went into oncoming traffic. But she didn't say like we almost died or anything. It was just like I went into oncoming traffic for like a second. And I don't think they ever mentioned a car crash from what I remember. So it was like they almost got into an accident. And so it was like, well, technology's gone because it was over a cell phone, I guess. So it's like we can't have them want anything else in the world at all. So it was pretty weird. She was just crazy. And then, of course, it goes to the end of this episode, and they're eating the food and stuff, and the dad, he eats, and then he gets killed because she put rat poison, which I thought was hilarious that it was called rat hell. I just thought that was interesting. But she puts rat poison in all the food so that they can all go to heaven together, and it's like, this goes like beyond, what it initially even seemed, because she was just like psycho, and it was just really crazy the way it all played out. And then, the dad dies, and she's trying to force the son to eat. She's like yelling at him, and Sam's trying to tell him like, you don't have to do that. And then he ends up dying because the sister, she flicks the spoon away, and he wants to save her from getting stabbed, and he gets stabbed, and he gets killed. And I was like, wow, I couldn't believe that they both actually died. And I don't know if it's fortunate or unfortunate, but Sam was trying to help the girl, Magda, I believe her name was. And he's like, you don't have to actually kill her. You can control it. It doesn't have to control you. And so, of course, her mother survives. And she's supposed to. And he's like, you can help. I can help you, and you can get control of this for sure. And it's supposed to be a nice little ending where she gets to go and, do her thing. And unfortunately, this random Mr. Touch dude comes in. And I knew something was suspicious. Like, whenever something is noticeable, like when you walk past and it's not just a person talking to another person, I always pay attention to that, because it's like, oh, this person is working on a car, or this random extra is on a motorcycle. That type of stuff doesn't happen. Sometimes you notice that, like, they don't ever put like motorcycles and stuff. It's just random people. It's always somebody, like, unless they film in a very big area. If it's a motorcycle, it's for a very important reason. Like, it's a person that's gonna do something. And so when I saw this guy on a motorcycle, I was like, what the heck is this what's happening here? Because that's not just an extra. That's like somebody about to do something. And of course, he takes off the helmet, and it ends up being Mr. Tetch. And what I found very interesting is he went and he killed this girl, and he gets a phone call, and he's like, I dealt with the Winchester's mess, and as expected, they couldn't finish the job. And I can't remember what season it is, but as soon as he said that, I was like, this is exactly like some other season. I can't remember, but there was some season where it was like, we need to kill everything. I want to say it was when Sam didn't have a soul, and it was like Samuel was like, we basically have to kill anything and everything that's supernatural needs to 100% be murdered or captured, once we found out the whole alpha stuff. And as soon as he said that, I was like, the men of letters are very different. They're 100%. It's either human or murdered, and that's all there is to it. There's no in-between ground. They don't care if you're actually good or bad. It's like, this is what you are. It's almost like they do this all the time in movies, but like vampire movies, it's like, oh, here are the evil vampires and here are the good vampires, and then here's like this random group of hunters or whatever, and they're like, all vampires are bad because that's just the history of it. And that's kind of how the men of letters appear to be at this point, based on Mr. Tetch at least. That could have just been specific to, hey, it's Sam and Dean, let's follow this. And also, technically, she was involved in killing those two people by accident, because she couldn't control her power. So I still don't give them any leeway on it, but I'm sure that's the reason. That's like the reasoning that they'd have. But I thought it was interesting when they said that. It's like, all right, it seems like they're kind of, there's no leeway as far as being supernatural in any regard. You're either human or you're not human, and in that case, you need to be killed because you're an abomination or something. So thought it was interesting. It was like they didn't finish the job, and that's all it was. All there was to it, for them. And maybe it was just on the surface. It's like, oh, she's psychic, and they let her go even though she killed 2 people, and that's probably all they saw. But it was just interesting. It's like, all right, men of letters, considering how amazing they are, where it's like there's been no magical attacks or whatever for 40 years, you think they do a little bit of research. Like, all right, maybe she doesn't deserve to be, shot twice with a suppressed gun and left to die in a, rest stop restroom, which is this is just the worst place you could possibly die. They killed her in a dirty, nasty rest stop, restroom, and that's a bad way to die. But I'm excited to see where they take it. I don't know if this Mr. Tetch character is just going to follow them for a while, or if he'll eventually actually confront them or not, because it seems like they don't really want to kill them or anything. It's like, alright, well, they have their whole plan, which was supposed to be, we just want information on the hunters in America, but they just keep doing it in like the dumbest way possible. Let's go behind them and kill every person they decide to set free because we don't do any of our own research as to why they did it. They set them free and they should be killed. That seems to be the Mendeletter's mindset. It's like, we're going to say this, but we're also going to do this because that's what we feel, but we also feel this if you want to help us out. So they seem to just continually have conflicting things that they want and that they do, going towards Sam and Dean. So who knows where it's headed, but I did enjoy this episode. Excited for the next one, even though I don't know what it's supposed to be about. Like, the trailers for this season have been really, really vague lately. They've been showing like a couple of minor clips and they do like one funny thing, and it's like, okay, I have no idea what's happening in the episode. They say like a super vague line and then something funny, like in the promo for this, it was like, for whatever reason, Dean wants to really use a grenade launcher. So maybe we'll get to see that. I think that would actually be kind of cool. But, who knows what's going to happen in this next episode. It's been insanely vague this whole season. The trailers have been like, here's a little joke, here's a flash of this thing and that thing, and here's one single line, and that's the trailer, and you have no idea what's actually happening in the next episode. But I'm still excited for it because it's supernatural. But like I said, I want to know what you guys thought about this one. I do want to know what you guys think about this episode. I mean, there's a lot to it. I I think they did a lot of good stuff, kind of the old school stuff, and obviously much newer stuff with Mary, coming back to life. But I like what they did with it. I definitely want to know what you guys thought about it. So please comment below. Let me know your favorite parts, least favorite parts, and with them having this ending, with Mr. Tetch, I want to know where you think they're headed with it, because they made the point of saying that he was basically like the best torturer or whatever. That was kind of like the big thing where they didn't want to call him in before to torture Sam, but now he's following them and he's checking up on cases and things like that. Do they have the same goal anymore? Like, do the men of letters have the same goal of just finding out about hunters in America? Or are they now just solely focusing on Sam and Dean? Because if this guy's as deadly as they say he is, there seems to be no real reason to, like, send him after Sam and Dean. Like, they're the good guys, but I guess they've had their screw-ups in the past, so maybe that's why they feel they need, like, their best killer, to be behind them. But I want to know where you think that stuff is headed. Like, what is the actual goal of the men of letters, outside of what they've already said? Because it seems like there's something else there. I want to know your theories on that and what you thought about the episode in general. So please comment below, let me know, and thanks for watching.